Do not fear, Saf is here. Welcome to Inspirational People, Inspirational Stories. My name is Saf Buxy as always, and this is Saf Surgery, and we are a massive part of spirituality gone wild. And we have another episode today, and we have an episode that I'm very interested in learning from spirituality's gone wild very own Wim Hoff. And there's a reason why I call him Wim Hoff, because he does things that Wim Hoff does, or I think he does things that Wim Hoff doesn't even do. But I can't wait to have him on the show today. It's been a long time coming, and I hope you guys would enjoy him, because he's phenomenal. He is absolutely phenomenal. Some of the stuff he does, and we're going to be learning about all different things. But before I introduce him, let me get some of my normal stuff out of the way. Yes, we are Spirituality Gone Wild, and we are live every Thursday. Next Thursday, I have a double act of guests, two wonderful ladies. And I won't say too much about them, but please do not miss next week's show. It's the first time I've got two guests at one time. A bit of a tag team going on, so hopefully you enjoy it. As always, Monday night, it's I'm on Sky TV, channel 191, and a Sky Showcase at 9:30, where I lead host Men's Talk. And of course, next Tuesday, as always, it's Universal Recovery at 6 p.m. UK time on Facebook and YouTube. Facebook and YouTube. Right, let's do this now. Scott Stanfield is my guest tonight. Scott is, as I say, a wonderful chap, but he has created something called Modern Longevitarian. You know what? I've been trying to say this all day. And off air, I asked Scott, am I saying it right? And he goes, you've done it spot on. And now when it comes to it, I've said it all wrong. Longevitarian. Scott has created Modern Longevitarian. And what that represents is you can live your best life as long as possible. And you know what? He is living proof that you can change the mindset passed down by previous generations with the focus of the true macronutrients of mindset, oxygen, water, sleep, food, movement, and check this out, being uncomfortable. You know what? He is really our own very own Wim Hoff. This is going to be an exciting show. I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, let's get Wim Hoff, Spirituality Gone Wild Wim Hoff, Mr. Scott Stanfield. Hey, what's up, my man?
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, I feel like I need to get my Elton John glasses. We can start singing, my
favorite dancer,
yes.
Tiny Dancer.
Tiny Dancer, right?
Tiny Dancer. Hi, Scott. How you doing, bud? You all right?
Oh, man. I'm doing amazing today. How are you?
I'm really well, man. Really well, really busy. But you know what? Great to be of service today. And I've been really excited to have you on, because one, it's been a long time coming. But two, what you do and what you've created, it's all new to me. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be new to a lot of my viewers who haven't heard you before. I'm sure some have, and I'm sure this name will ring a bell. Angel, who you've heard from before. Hi, Angel. Welcome to the show. I hope you enjoy it, because Scott is going to be saying some stuff that I've never heard of. So if anyone's got any questions, and if you're not watching this live, we'll try and answer the questions later. But please ask us. Well, ask Scott in particular, because he knows what he created. But before we get on to what you've created and what you do today, I'd like to know a bit of history about a young Scott, where you've come from, what your past is like, your growing up, and I guess how you got to where you got to today. Obviously, anything you feel comfortable with, of course, but I'd like to know a bit of history, because today for me is about honoring you, because I want to honor you, because the work you're doing is remarkable. Someone is saying, hi, Saf. It's saying Facebook user, I don't know who you are, because you haven't given StreamYard permission to use your name. So please let me know what your name is so I can give you a shout out. But hi, whoever it is. But yeah, Scott, over to you, buddy. I'm really interested to hear your story and what you do today. So this is all yours.
Right. Well, I'll start with this. I'm from the States and grew up in South Carolina, and which I know you've been to. I think you've been to the States before, right? But you haven't. You may not know I don't know so much about the different diet changes or dialect changes in basically different parts of England and things like that, right? And so I am of English descent and Irish descent. So, I grew up in one of the original 13 colonies, right? And, my Stanfield is an English name. And my mom, we date back to the Mayflower on my mom's side of the family. So 17 generation direct descendant of the Mayflower, Isaac Allerton, who came over as a pilgrim from back in the original day. Right. But my point being, growing up in the South, the diet, the standard American diet, which we call the SAD diet here, because it's very sad about how poorly lack of nutrition it is I call it the Southern version of the standard American diet. So the SSAD because we deep fry everything, Twinkies and donuts and, all those things like that. And fried chicken is where that comes from and all that stuff. And long story short, I had a very poor diet growing up. The only glimpses of health in my childhood were my mom bought a book on macrobiotic diet, and she was an aerobics instructor. My mom was overweight my entire memory of life. She turned 70 next month. Dad's 72 now. I used to race go-karts. I wanted to be a NASCAR driver. I used to get up in the morning at 5:30 and watch Formula One races and IndyCar races and all that type of stuff. So somewhere around 16, 17, I really started taking strength into, fried pickles are a very Southern thing, by the way, Kelly. They do have to draw a line somewhere. It's when you start
Hi, Angel.
Yeah. When you start breading and deep frying pickles, you got to draw the line, right? And but my point being is this, right? Is that in the South, my diet was really bad, right? And you have to think I grew up in the 80s. Fast food was at this heyday, even it is now. And my mom was the lunch lady at my elementary school for 28 years. So I was forced to support the lunch school system. I was not able to bring my lunch, right? So there was no peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for me, right? And I grew up in South Carolina, Columbia, and spent a lot of time in Georgia. So North and South Georgia, and used to race in North Georgia and Shiloh and that part of the world as well. And my aunt lives in Aiken, South Carolina, which is just over the border from Augusta. So, but anyway, so in high school, one line served hamburgers and French fries every day, and the other line had the rotating menu. And the only days out of 4 years of high school that I did not eat a hamburger and French fries was the day they had pizza in the other line. And so, even though that I was hitting the gym and lifting weights and bench pressing and squatting and doing curls and all those things to become a better, stronger athlete, we had no idea about diet. My breakfast would be like an orange Gatorade and a honey bun from the convenience store. I mean, like just the nastiest stuff you can think of. Lunch would be fried chicken or a double bacon cheeseburger with fries. And I wouldn't even get the coleslaw. I wasn't even getting the raw cabbage, right? All those type of things. I was fit. I was in shape. Went to college was partly because of economics. I couldn't afford to eat meat, so I was a vegetarian. Would go to Subway and get a foot-long veggie sub, and would do things like that. I would get wouldn't get mayonnaise. It was all the low-fat stuff on there, and mustard, no mayonnaise, and that type of stuff. And doing those type of things. And then I got in the restaurant business after I quit racing. Was going to college to be an athletic trainer, believe it or not, and PE major. So I really got a good understanding and foundation for the body there before I transitioned and dropped out and went into working in restaurants. I gained 30 pounds my first 90 days in the restaurant business. But I also went from dishwasher to manager in that same 90-day period. Right. And then a couple years later, I'm doing the Atkins diet, high protein, low carb, not really caring about the fat. We didn't really do it like the modern day ketogenic diet, and got really fit, was squatting 415 pounds. But then just, alcohol came involved. I was drinking a bunch, chasing girls. They were chasing me. Right. And my weight was just fluctuating all over the place. And I've lost 40 pounds twice. I probably lost 30 pounds another 3 or 4 times of that, and 9 years ago was the last time I was turning 40. I turned 49 just in about 13 days. And so that's really kind of my abbreviated journey, if you will, on exercise. I don't know what happened there. Is that you, Saf, driving that?
Yeah. I'm actually trying to find that photograph of you, so I can show you. If you can get it from your end, that'd be great. Because I haven't put it on mine. I wish I put it on mine, but that's about. I mean, you're talking about. I mean, how old are you now? Not now, but what you're talking about. How old were you? I mean, is that you, Scott? Is that you?
That's me right there. Yeah, that's me.
You're looking ripped, bruv.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a recent photo of you?
Yeah, it's 46. Yeah, that was about 2 years ago. That picture, a year and a half ago.
You look lovely. I'm trying to find that photograph of you.
Oh, here it is, right here. Here it is, right here. I got it right there.
Tell us about this. How old are you then? Is that what was your weight?
The before picture, I was 31 years old. I weighed about 200 pounds in that picture. I think I carry most of the weight in my chin right there. You can see that second chin popping up. The girl that I'm holding there, she's 21, 22 years old now. That's my niece, Kaylee. It's before my son was born. My son was just born, actually. He's 19 now. The second picture, my arms wrapped around my dad. It's his 70th birthday. So it was 2 years ago. I was 46 years old, maybe. 46 years there. Right now, as you can see me in the little edge right there, I'm 48, getting ready to turn 49, right, is where I'm at now. And
when are you 49?
March 16th. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming up. So you're older than me, bro. Would never have thought. Never have thought. You're older than me.
Right. Yeah.
I'm 48. I'm 49 in September.
Yeah. So I don't have a digital picture of this. I'll hold it up though. So this picture is right around the same time that picture, the before picture is taken. I'm gonna see if I can get this in here. That's me and my dad, right? Just months before he got diagnosed with prostate cancer. We're literally at the airport. He's taking me to get on a plane to go to St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. So he's a truck driver. Look how he's fit. I'm taller than he is. Look how fat I am compared to him. Yeah. Right. We're not really happy bunch. It's really early in the morning. Right. So
is that what, I mean, when you look at, because I remember when I first tried to lose weight, because I think you've seen my photographs from before. Mm-hmm. I was over 100 kilos of pure excess body fat. I think the catalyst for me to change was the looking at the photographs. I went to Portugal once, and I saw me in the sea, and I saw the way I looked, and I wasn't happy. And I think that was the catalyst. I mean, what was the catalyst for you to change from that to what you do today, and how you? I mean, was it looking at photographs like myself?
No. Well, the first one is that my dad got cancer. Like he was 55 years old. I was 31, and knowing two things that happened. His dad, my grandfather, passed away of cancer at age 62. I was single digits, 8, 9 years old when my grandfather passed away. And then my dad gets cancer. Then on top of that, all around the same time, my dad's 3 best friends get cancer too. Right. They are, it's my uncle, which is through marriage. My Uncle Al had married Aunt Nancy, which is my dad's little sister, right? And so Uncle Al gets prostate cancer at the same age as my dad, 55, 56 years old. They don't get it all. He passes away 60 and a couple months old, right? My dad's other best friend, Don, which was like an uncle to me, who was a neighbor of ours when I was 2 years old. So I'd known my entire life, all my memories have Don in there somewhere, and Nancy and their family and those things. And he got prostate cancer and passed away. And then another friend, Stan, had colon cancer and then passed away as well, and had all the problems with colon cancer. And because I was living in the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands on St. Croix, I was outside the jar. I wasn't in South Carolina. And I'm backing up now because I was able to go, my genetics are there. This is before we talked about, and I can talk about what epigenetics are, before genetic expression really came up. We thought it was all just about genetics, right? I'm predisposed genetically to get cancer because my dad's dad got it. My dad got it. Therefore, I'm going to get it. So, but one of the things I saw was there was a common thing between Uncle Al, Uncle Don, Stan, and my dad. And it wasn't genetics. I saw diet was the common thing. They all loved eating that Southern traditional diet, right? And I was like, okay, I can control what I put in and on my body. Okay. And so that's where I started with that. And this wasn't Modern Longevitarian times. This was, 9 years before that. I think this was 18 years ago, when that happened. I became my wife. She's a New Yorker. She was a pescatarian for a number of years. I changed my diet. I started eating like a girl, started eating like my wife, right? And eating a lot of the same things she did. But I still had these, and this is why people switch over to ketogenic diet. They want like the keto bread, and they still want to be able to eat pizza because we're programmed that we should eat pizza, burgers, bread, sandwiches, and pastas and those type of things. So now there's these low carb versions of it. But when I started keto 5 years ago, there wasn't. So I just omitted those things. So I was looking for this certain feeling in my stomach of fullness that you don't get from eating vegetables all the time. You have to eat like a truckload full of vegetables, right? I mean, it's just really a lot of stuff to get that feeling in your stomach. And so I slayed a lot of those diet dragons and things that I had to like kick those habits of those types of things. But I initially started eating a lot of like tuna fish sandwiches, and I was eating a lot of fish and fake meats and, like Boca burgers and stuff like that in the beginning. And so I wasn't really changing my diet, so to speak. I was just changing the ingredients of it. But anyway, mom gets cancer 2 years later. She's 55. So both my parents got cancer at age 55. And mom had uterine cancer. She had to have a hysterectomy. And mom turned 70 on April 3rd. So mom and dad are both cancer survivors. And when you go back and you look at it, my mom's mom had lupus, which is a form of blood cancer. So very similar to leukemia in a lot of ways. And so cancer is in my family, right? Because of those things. And so that was 31. Then 33, mom gets cancer. And 35, I find myself at, 40 pounds overweight again, and I was just still struggling, even though I changed my diet. So here in America, I don't know if it was in England or not, but there was this guy named Tony Horton who had the P90X workout program. And I saw it pretty early in the game because I was a restaurant guy and I was up late at night. I got an Employee of the Month gift card. I bought that. For some reason, still have the DVDs. We still put them in the Xbox because we don't have a DVD player, but we put them in the Xbox.
He had a follow-up as well, didn't he? Or before
yeah,
that.
but he had P90, then P90 Extreme, which is P90X, P90X2, P90X3, and now he's coming out with a new one. He's in his 60s now, right? This was a while ago. I mean, or early 60s, and
We're
so
talking about 60s. Kelly, who's a frequent, hi Kelly. She's 61 and she looks absolutely amazing, but you can see that she's gone through her fair share of cancer, and they gave her 5 years. That was 12 and a half years ago. So you are also a survivor. Angel's 41. She would love to get her body fat away. I'm sure many people would love to get their body fat away. And Angel's mum also had cancer. Thank you for sharing, guys. And Steve, before we continue, please hold that thought. I think Steve's having a little bit of a joke here, Scott. Saf abuses body with liquids. Scott abuses body with solids. Well, mine wasn't just liquid, Steve. I put a few little things up my nose and I smoked a few naughty things as well. But I see your point. But so we're getting
wasn't immune to the liquid abuse as well. My liver, I had a few liver boot camp, events as well. Right. So it was back in my 20s. Right. I saw the sun come up from drinking a bunch of booze. Right. And I never really did any hard stuff, but when I say hard drugs, right. But I did a lot of alcohol back in the day, and I had some problems with it. I was able to stop without having, going to rehab or any of those type of things, but I definitely had to work on getting that under control for sure, and that was part of the problem, with that. So we can talk about weight loss and fat and those things, because 9 years ago, as I was turning 40, I was a hospital director of food and beverage. I was learning so much about diets and what the American Dietetics Association recommended, what the doctors were prescribing to the patients. And I think I'd already been a vegetarian for probably 8 or 9 years at this point. Because all that started at 31 years old. I'm turning 40, and I go for a well visit to the doctor thinking I'm getting ready to take a victory lap. Right. And the only thing that was down with my diet was my blood pressure. I'd gone from 120 over 80 to 9 years later to about 100 over 70. Right. So my blood pressure was down, but I was still 200 pounds. And I was a fat vegetarian. Right. And so you would think that I was doing everything right. So I'd lost the weight at 35 doing P90X. And then at 40, I'm back at the weight again. And I was like, okay. And I start doing P90X again, but it was just like 9 hours worth of working out, commuting to Salt Lake, all those things. Right. It was so hard to do. And luckily, a guy named Matt Shannon was a marketing director for the doctors that did all the gastric bypass surgeries. And he said, I heard Dr. Belknap say in a talk the other day that weight loss was 70% diet. And here I am trying to lose 40 pounds, and I didn't change my diet. I just tried to start working out again. And somebody had gifted me this book called The Warrior Diet, and it was written in 2008, 2009. It was one of the very first books on intermittent fasting, and I'd never read it. So you think about how intermittent fasting is trending now. I've been doing it for 9 years, right? So I was a very early adopter to not eating all the time, 3 squares, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Is that what you do? Is that what you do now? You do intermittent fasting, do you?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And you're still a vegetarian with that?
No, I'm not, right? You can be, right? There's a book you can see over. This is a plant-based book called Fiber Fueled. I have the Ketotarian book by Dr. Will Cole is a plant-based keto book. And then right below that, you can't see it, but right at the very bottom book is called The Longevity Diet by Victor Longo. He's a PhD at University of Southern California, and he developed what's called the fasting mimicking diet, which is a plant-based diet.
I've been on a plant-based, sorry to interrupt you, Scott. I've been on a plant-based nutrition diet for over a year now.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have my days. I do find it difficult sometimes because I do but I do think about eggs and meat and chicken sometimes. But then a lot of my reason, I think, is ethical, which sort of keeps me going. But I've been on a plant-based for about a year now. Yeah.
Here's something that's going to blow your mind, right? Does your diet ideology match your diet biology?
I have no idea.
But you see, right? You said the ethical side of not eating meat is keeping you on a plant-based diet, but yet you're craving, eggs and meat and those type of things, right? And why are you craving it? Maybe your body needs it, right? And so that's the thing, is that you asked me, am I still plant-based? Am I still vegetarian? Some days I am, right? Some days I am. Some weeks I am. Some months I am. But there's also sometimes that, like right now, I'm on a spree of eating more meat than what I was, right? And so, like, I don't know if you noticed, I was shoveling some food in my, shoving some food down, right before the show came live. Well, I did a 10-minute workout, and I grabbed a handful of almonds, and then I grabbed a chicken breast, and I was eating that before the show, right? But I haven't eaten since 9 o'clock the night before, right? And it was 1 o'clock my time. So I fasted for, I don't know, what is that, 15 hours or something along those lines. But I'm just going to have those two things, and then I probably won't eat until dinner time and have another stretch. And so just enough to get me through till dinner, and then have that, and then go down that road. So this is my belief on diet right now, is that we as a culture are getting caught up in diet dogma, right? It's almost like religious dogma in a way, right? Where like a vegan diet is better than a vegetarian diet. And there's no way that if somebody's vegan would ever be carnivore, and that keto works for some people and paleo for others and all those type of things. But there's so many commonalities between all of those diets, because somebody who is a true vegan or vegetarian by definition should be eating like whole plants, right? Well, somebody who's paleo, what kind of plants do they eat? They eat whole plants, but they also add in, ethically, humanely raised animals that are, if it's cattle or land dwelling, that's grass fed, pasture raised, humanely raised, no antibiotics ever, no hormones ever, no steroids ever, those type of things, right? And so those diets, right, are very similar, but they want to fight with each other because the vegans would say you shouldn't eat meat. And then the paleo people say that vegan's unhealthy and that you need meat, because the reason vegan is unhealthy is because you have to supplement B12 and all the things you miss that aren't in your diet. And so those type of things go on, right? And they're fighting against each other, when in our world, right, those two diets, Dr. Mark Hyman just wrote a book. It just came out called The Pegan Diet. It's a mix between the paleo and the vegan diet. So you listen to all these healthy diets like vegan, vegetarian, paleo, keto. Keto is not really a diet. Keto is a metabolic state.
What's paleo, Scott? You lost me there. What's paleo?
Paleo is Paleolithic, meaning that you would live as if you're a caveman, that you would only eat things that you could, as a caveman would, with things that he would hunt or gather. There would be no agriculture, so no potatoes, nothing that grows under the ground and things like that. Now it's convoluted on what that would look like in these days, because as a longevitarian or someone who focuses on health span and lifespan, cavemen didn't live that long, right? So was their diet the best thing to do? But it's a way to get people to focus on eating whole foods, and they're close as you possibly can to a natural state. Like, for instance, I had almonds, but also in the pantry are crackers made from almond flour. Which one is more from a whole state? The almonds are. So I chose to eat the almonds instead of the almond crackers, which are more highly processed, right? And so those type of things, and so that piece of the puzzle, can come into play when you're looking at diet and diet dogma or diet beliefs and things like that. So I look at diet as a tool, right? Like you have been like, plant-based or eating more, vegan, right? 100% plant-based for almost a year. Well, you've done a lot of amazing things for your diet. You've also added in, a lot of fiber, plant diversity, hopefully, to feed your gut microbiome, done all these things. But, you could also, you could add in fasting so you can get your body into ketosis and teach your body to burn fat, right? And so you build metabolic flexibility between burning the two fuels that our bodies burn, which one would be carbohydrates and the other one is fats. We don't burn protein, right? And there's no such thing as starvation mode. So those type of things, your body is either burning carbohydrates or it's burning fat for fuel. If you do fast in the first 24 hours, there'll be a slight protein burn, but then it flips over and there's a protein sparing mechanism while you're fasting. Because think about this. If we evolved from some caveman or you can believe in a higher power, spirituality gone wild, God created us, right? If all of a sudden that we run out of food, we have an onboard storage for fuel, which is fat, right? Right. You've been 100 kilos over. I've been 40 pounds over. You do the math. 40 pounds is 3,500 calories. There's 140,000 calories. You divide that by 2,000. I can go on several months, 60 days without eating anything before I get down to zero. Right. And so, but the thing is that your metabolism increases when you're fasting. And if you started losing your protein, right, you're losing muscle mass, right? And whoever the greater design is, whether it was an evolution or Darwinism or whatever, the species wouldn't survive because we wouldn't be able to have the locomotion to go find the fuel we need to survive, right? So our body's actually designed to click over to our storage, which is fat, and it's designed to spare protein so we can go find water, which is super important, and go find the next meal, whether we have to hunt it or gather it. And we have flexibility like a new modern car does to burn different types of fuels. We can burn carbohydrates or we can burn fat, either way.
So fasting is a good thing.
Absolutely. Right.
But after fasting for a certain period of time, isn't there a danger that you're so hungry that you end up eating so much more than what you normally eat because you have eaten so much? Because obviously the body's it's got a memory. I better eat now because I might fast. You know what I mean? Isn't there something in that as well?
Well, that's the mental side of the game, right? So when I first there's several ways of intermittent fasting, right? And the warrior diet, the first one I did was a 20-hour underfeeding phase and then a 4-hour overfeeding phase. So you're getting all your calories in 4 hours. I find that when I fast, for 20 hours or more, that normally, right, I would tend to overeat. I know that a lot of times 16 hours depends on how much I ate the day before. If I didn't eat a lot the day before, which I didn't eat a lot yesterday, that's why I ate a little bit earlier today. 16 hours is typically not long enough, but my sweet spot is like 18 hours where I can fast long enough to get in, make sure I'm in ketosis anyway, because I eat low carb almost every day anyway, but I go 18 hours and then I don't overeat when I actually eat. So that's the mental side of it, right? There is, I guess, some genetic things like that, but I will say there's one thing is that your food smells better, your food tastes better, right? When it comes to eating it, after you've been fasting for a while. So that could be a downfall for that. But you hear people talk about a 16-hour fasting window, 8-hour feeding window. You very rarely hear people talk about an 18-6. And that's what I do a lot of times. There's benefits to, Brad Pilon wrote an amazing book years ago. It was with the second book that I saw on fasting. It's called Eat, Stop, Eat, where twice a week you would fast for around 24 hours. And 24 hours-ish. I've watched him on a podcast. It wasn't exactly 24 hours. But 24 hours, a lot of things happen. Brain fertilization, stem cells for your brain. These could BNF1 or brain nootropic things happen, and you start getting stem cells in your brain. There's another thing that happens called autophagy. Autophagy is basically a process where your body actually starts eating the damaged cells. And autophagy means to eat itself and replacing them with healthy cells. So I think maybe one of the reasons that I look as young as I do at 40, turning 49 and just 13 days from now or less, right? Well, I don't even know what today's date is, right? But, at March 16th, and it being the beginning of March is maybe because my body's been going into some form of autophagy multiple times a week for 9 years and clearing those things up, right? And that type of stuff. There's multiple studies on the benefits of calorie restriction and fasting and longevity. But the problem is that, hey, I'm going to eat a little bit less than I need all along the way is a difficult thing to do, where if I fast for 16, 18, 20, 24 hours, and then I can eat as much as I want, right? Without overindulging, gorging, being gluttonous or any of those type of things, right, is doing the same type of things. And in Okinawa, Japan, which is one of the blue zones are the 5 areas of the world that have the highest population of people over 100 years old. They have this Japanese term, and I won't butcher it, but it means eat to 80% full. So there's this Japanese practice to where you never feel super full, which is the problem I struggle with, is switching from a meat eater to a vegetarian, because I wanted that weight in my stomach that I had learned by eating a meat heavy diet, those type of things. And that's just that we're just like, that's really deep in diet and those type of things. And people want to know a lot about those things. And I know there are a lot of comments coming in. I don't know if you want to catch up on some of those, or if you want to transition to other things, or what you want to talk about. But
I think have you got more comments on your side? Because I haven't got.
Oh yeah, I did. Maybe because I switched over to the brand thing. Maybe that's what it was. So maybe I took over on the thing. Yeah.
The last comment I've got is this one. Have you got that as well?
Let's see. Oh, that's the last one. Yeah, that's the last one. But there were, yeah. So,
I think we basically. I mean, yeah, we'll go through a few of them. I mean,
right. Like Kelly said, she stopped drinking October 30th, 1985.
well done.
Angel says, I feel fasting helps. Fasting is the cornerstone to what I do. Right.
You know, intermittent fasting, right? It's so. Are you fast? Is yours a night fast predominantly, or is it?
Well, here's the thing. This is let's think. Everybody's different, right? And so I think that your fasting when you fast should be determined off your sleep cycle. See, I'm more of a night owl, or as Dr. Michael Bruce, he's a PhD, he's called the sleep doctor, and he's categorized sleep types into 4 different types. A lion, which is what we know as the early bird, they get their first kill before dawn. Then you have a bear, which is basically they get up and go to bed with the sun. And that's 55% of the population. So bears kind of rule the world. Then there is the night owl, or what he calls the wolf, which is a nighttime animal, nocturnal animal. And then the dolphin, which is like the modern day insomniac. They don't really sleep right because dolphins don't really sleep. They kind of keep moving, those type of things. See, I'm a wolf, right? I'm a night owl. And so what happens is I wake up in the morning and I'm not hungry in the morning. So I ate today at 1, knowing that just before 1, knowing I just worked out. I got this with you. I got another call at 2:00. I got a call at 3:00, and I got to be somewhere at 4:00. I was thinking I need to grab a bite now, or somewhere around that 6 or 7 o'clock period. I didn't want to be fasted that long today. Right.
So you woke up, Scott. You trained.
Yep.
And you ate after. So where do you get the energy from? Some people might say, I need food or need carbs in some way to get the energy to train. But how can you train without any energy, or do you have the energy because of how your body is now?
Well, when you first start working out in a fasted state, there's 2 things. It will mess with your mind, right? Because we've been brainwashed that we need a pre-workout meal, we need a pro-workout protein shake, and all those type of things. You remember from your days when you were, heavy on the alcohol. When were you hungover? In the moment when you were drinking, or the next day?
Next day.
The next day, right? So what we had yesterday determines how we feel today. Our body actually can store about 2,500 calories of glucose energy, meaning glucose, sugar, carbohydrate energy in our liver and our muscles. That's why marathon runners hit the wall around mile 18, because that's when they run out of stored fuel. Now, because my body is metabolically flexible and I switch into ketosis, like let's say I'm 170 pounds. I weigh, 170 pounds. And let's say that I'm, hypothetically speaking, just to keep the math easy, I'm at 10% body fat. I have 17 pounds of fat on my body. 10 pounds of that is 35,000 calories. And if my body is trained to burn fat as fuel, I don't need to have a pre-workout meal or an energy drink or any of those type of things to go work out, because my body's going, I will take the fuel I need from the fat on your butt, the fat on your muffin top, the fat on your gut, or wherever your fat may be when it used to be under my chin, or those type of things, right? Or for me, on my cheeks, right? Because I got these little puffy cheeks with the dimples and all that stuff, right? Right. Your body says,
Anyway,
yeah, exactly. Right. So my point is this, right? And so I have a really good a friend of mine, Kevin Rails. He's a trainer. We hike together sometimes. He was on the podcast. He's on the live show. He actually eats 200 carbs a day, but he works out in a fasted state. Sometimes does 2 workouts in a fasted state. So he goes to FitCom in Salt Lake, and Keto Mojo runs a keto test on him. He had 200 carbs the day before, worked out, fasted, was still fasted when they did the test, and he was in ketosis. And they asked him how long he'd been on a ketogenic diet, and he goes, I don't need a ketogenic diet. 2 ways to get into ketosis to get your body to be metabolic flexible to burn fat. One is fast long enough to get there, And the other one is to eat a low carb diet to take away those carbohydrates. So your carbohydrate glucose storage goes down low enough where it forces your body to start burning fat and converting fat into ketones. That's why it's called the ketogenic diet, to do that. And that builds metabolic flexibility. If you only eat carbohydrates or eat, or when I say only eat, when you eat a constant high carbohydrate diet, you're doing two things. One, you're only burning carbohydrates as fuel. And the second thing is this. This is what most people don't understand, this science behind the hormones. Insulin is a hormone. And when insulin is spiked, and there's 4 ways to spike insulin, and one of them is with high glycemic foods, it takes 13 hours for that insulin to go down low enough to flip the switch. And when this insulin is spiked, it sends only one message, which says to store fat. And it takes 13 hours. And that's why intermittent fasting works, right? If you go a 16-hour fast, you have 3 hours that your body's got the message that it's okay to burn fat. And it'll click over and start burning fat for those 3 hours or however long you fast. For me, it was 7 hours and those type of things. And so what happens is, these are the 4 ways you spike insulin, in case anybody's wondering, right? Lack of sleep, high stress, and you can stress yourself by just mentally thinking about stress. You can stress yourself by exercise. You actually burn more fat by walking than you do by running, right? And then by high glycemic foods, right? If you have a banana, you spiked your insulin for the next 13 hours. You have bread, pasta, pizza, you just spiked your bread or your insulin, spiked your insulin for the next 13 hours. Right. But if you do that for dinner, knowing that you're not going to eat for 16 hours or 20 hours before the next meal is fine. And I lost the 40 pounds, intermittent fasting, still being a vegetarian without changing my diet, still eating high carbs. I didn't do keto until 4 years later, which has been for the last 5 years as an optimization thing. I didn't do it for weight loss. I did it because I live in a very cold environment. I was craving fat. I knew that if I added high fat to my high carb diet, that I would gain weight back again. So I just took away the carbs so I could eat what I was craving, which was the high fat. So it's just understanding how all those pieces work together. Right.
We've talked about high fats or good fats and carbs and protein. You haven't talked about sweets, like sweet foods, sugars and stuff. Do you have that? Do you have desserts and chocolates and cakes? And is that part of your diet even when you're in the intermittent mode?
Well, you can, for sure, right? There's a couple things, right? I'll say this. The first one is that I have keto versions of a lot of things, and meaning that you can use sweeteners like stevia or erythritol or monk fruit that don't spike your insulin and keep you in a ketosis and not do that. Like for instance, I made some limeade last night. I squeezed a couple small limes into a glass, put 5 drops of stevia in to balance out the acid and of the limes, and then filled it up with water and some ice, and I had limeade. Right? Occasionally I will want to come out of ketosis, and I'll have some like Jedediah, Jed. Welcome to the show. Put in raw honey. Yes, Utah, where I live, is called the Beehive State, and we can get raw honey here. And do that occasionally. That's a once a month thing for me, not that often. Last night, you want to hear what I had for dessert last night? I'll tell you, right?
Go on.
I put a handful of almonds in the blender with some heavy cream, some water, and some monk fruit, and blended and with some baking cocoa, right? So not like a hot chocolate mix that has sugar in it, but baking cocoa. And then because I have this keto palate that I've been keto for so long, I added some salt to it after it came out. So like a salted caramel, so to speak. So I had this layers of sweet and saltiness at the same time with almonds, heavy cream, water, and blended that together. And I made enough for 2 by accident. I didn't know how much I was making because it was the first time I've ever made it. And then put half of it in the freezer. So I'm going to have some ice cream tonight. Right. So I have this almond chocolate, cream ice cream. But here's the thing. This is what got me over the hump. If you're going to go into a ketogenic diet, you're going to have sugar cravings for 21 days. Don't let anybody fool you. It's not like going to be a simple thing, right? That happened to me, right? And when I heard that 21 days, I'm like, I just got to make it 22 days and I'm going to be good, right? And I had heard Dr. Dom D'Anastigio on the Tim Ferriss show. I listened to a 3.5-hour podcast on the ketogenic diet. And in that, he laid out his chocolate mousse recipe. Basically was this: sour cream, some coconut oil, some baking cocoa, some stevia, right? To sweeten it to your taste. That got me over the hump, right? Now I've had multiple versions with that. I've done that with Greek yogurt. I've done it with peanut butter. I've even made like snickerdoodle versions of it where you take, put some cinnamon and sweetener in and do it that way. And one of my favorites, I'll be honest with you, is I take lemon or lime and squeeze into a yogurt, a no sugar plain yogurt that is, humanely raised and no hormones, antibiotics, all that type of stuff, and sweeten that. So you got this balance between acid and sweetness, and then you got the creaminess. So it's almost like this lemon bar flavor, right? And then you could take like, a protein bar and that's got like a lemon flavored bulletproof protein bar that has some MCT oils in it, lemon flavor, some cashew nuts, and sprinkle that over top to give you the crust. And it's like this deconstructed. I'm a foodie, man. I worked in restaurants 27 years. So you think I haven't made desserts? It's crazy.
Right? Look, Scott, we've got about 5 minutes left, and there's so much to talk about. But before we, hi, Jed. Good to see you. Jed's from Indiana.
Right. Yeah.
I can hear him saying "raw honey, babe." I can hear him saying that. I think Steve's having a laugh today. Scott is taking over the surgery. The man is on fire. Yes, he is. And honey, raw oats, peanut butter, and it's on. Thank you. Look, we've got 5 minutes left. Very, very briefly, and I think I definitely want you to come back because I know you have to go elsewhere today. But Modern Longevitarian, the macronutrients that I spoke about in the beginning. Can you go through them very, very quickly?
Right. And they've even expanded since that. So you looked at an older post. So I call them the 8 pillars of a modern longevitarian now. Right. And so the first one's mindset. And you know how important mindset is, right? You had to actually decide that you wanted to recover from your addiction, right? You had to make that decision, right? You were apprehensive. We had you on my show, which is amazing. One of my most popular episodes of all time, especially on the Spirituality Gone Wild Network, by the way. I sent you some screenshots of that. I'm getting chills just thinking about you being on the show. The first one's mindset. I had to get angry at myself to lose the 40 pounds the last time and then figure out a way to keep it off. So I had to change the way I thought about everything, right? So find some sort of impact moment, like my parents getting cancer, understanding that you can make changes and you have that. And so all of these pillars, and I'm going to back up a second and talk about this real quick because I mentioned this and I dropped this word and people may not know what it means, but epigenetics. It's not the hand that was dealt to you by mom and dad. It's how you play the hand that matters. Okay. Beautiful. It's not the genes that you were gifted that matter, is how you get these genes to express themselves. And how do genes express themselves? Through the environment. Okay. Like, for instance, fasting creates a different environment for my genes to express themselves than they do if I eat from the time I get up to the time I go to bed. The fact that I did a 10-minute workout expresses itself differently than the fact that I would choose to skip the workout and say, I only have 10 minutes to work. I'm going to skip it today, right? Expressing itself differently. I'm standing up. I'm at a stand-up desk, right? That forces my body to express itself differently. The genes express itself differently than if I was sitting down and hunched over and those type of things, right? So all those things matter. So mindset, number one. Number two, breath. The biggest thing you need to know about breathing is that you need to breathe through your nose, right? This is what I do for over 2 years when I go to sleep. And this is called Somnifix. It's a mouth tape.
Wow.
I tape my mouth shut. I got that from Patrick McKeon in Ireland, at Buteyko International Clinic. He wrote a book called Close Your Mouth. Somnifix, SOMNFIX.com. You get a 10% discount. I don't make any money from this. I'm just giving you the discount code Scott10. Biggest biohack I've ever done in my life, right next to intermittent fasting. Those two are the top 2 things I've ever done. Opened up my sinuses. Hey, Nicole, how are you? Right? Good to see you.
Hi, Nicole.
Yep. And so changed the way I breathe. 70% of American adults breathe through their mouth. 50% of our children, I don't know what the stats are in the UK, but breathing through your nose is by far the most thing that you can do to change the way that you breathe. Sends signals to your nervous system that everything's okay, puts you in rest.
Breathing in and breathing out. That's both ways, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. You can exhale through your mouth, and I do sometimes, right? But if you breathe through your mouth, right, you're sending a message to your nervous system that you're in fight or flight. So even in my book that I talk about this sleeping, right, I talk about taping your mouth shut, and then there's other ways of breathing, but there's 3 categories for breath. Don't have time to get into them. We can come back and talk about that later. But that hydration, net hydration, right? People don't realize that when you have, this is my cup from coffee earlier this morning, right? That only 80% of the water is digested or is consumed from that. 20% is not used to digest the caffeine. People don't realize that when they actually when they drink alcohol, urine production is increased by tenfold. Okay. So what happens is that we focus on these 8 cups of water a day, when we actually need to be focused on the fact that there are things that we do that detract from our hydration, and we need to drink more water to cover that in. Right. So there's things like that. So that's 1, 2, 3. Number 4, sleep. By far the pillar that has the most weight on it. Sleep touches every category. I wrote a book on it. It's 50 pages. It's going to help you fall asleep 1 of 2 ways. Either you're going to have these 7 steps to sound sleep, or 2, it's going to bore the shit out of you and you're going to fall asleep that way. One of the 2, right, is going to happen, right? Yeah, it's pretty funny, right? It's a good book. It's short, it's punchy. It's called Outstanding Landing, How to Get the Sleep of Your Dreams. It's inspired by Chuck Yeager, a quote by him, who was the first pilot to break the sound barrier in a level flight. And basically his quote is, if you can land a plane and walk away, it's a good landing. If you can land the plane and use it again tomorrow, it's an outstanding landing. So the whole thing is to be able to go to sleep and wake up in an amazing place, right? And do that. And that also will help you determine when you fast, right? My friend Bob Wholesale, I had him on the show. He's 78 years old. He's keto, he intermittent fast, but he eats breakfast. He's an early morning person. He eats breakfast. His last meal is at 2:00 in the afternoon, unless he's entertaining family or friends. And then he doesn't eat dinner. My first meal of the day normally is around 2:00. And then I eat later at night around 8:30. And then I don't eat breakfast. We do the same things, but we fast at different time of the day. So sleep is really an important piece of the puzzle that can tell you that. Then food, we talked a lot about food. There's 5 F's inside of fuel. Eating clean food, non-GMO, organic food. There is, fiber, metabolic flexibility, fasting, and feasting, right? There are days that I break my fast earlier, and I don't care about how much I eat. I eat about 3,000 calories, but then the next day I may eat 500 or 0. Right. So it all balances out over 2 days, with that. So you think about 3,600 calories over 2 days, I divide that by 2, that's only 1,800 calories in 2 days. Right. So it all balances out. So it's not, that way. Then movement and exercise are a big piece of the puzzle. Exercise is a supplement for the lack of movement. If you have a job where you can't get up and move, then you need to exercise and do that type of things. It releases happy molecules and endorphins and the proper hormones and growth hormones and those type of things.
Getting uncomfortable. Dopamine going.
Yeah, exactly. Then there's the Wim Hof method, right? And getting uncomfortable. And this is about hormetic stresses. Exercise is a hormetic stress that's positive. Getting cold, is a hormetic stress that does positive things. Getting hot, like Dr. Rhonda Patrick talks about Finland style saunas and the benefits of that. Endurance athletes can increase their threshold to failure by 32% by using hot saunas. So it's not just about getting cold, it's about doing both. And even though Wim Hof never talks about it, if you watch a documentary, like the Vice documentary on Wim Hof, there's 2 things. He intermittent fast. He eats 1 meal a day after 6:00. He never talks about it. He's been doing it for 30 years, right? Most people don't know that about him. But if you listen to enough podcast interviews, it comes up. Number 2, he goes out into the cold. And then number 3, after he gets it from the cold, where does he go? He goes into a sauna, right? So he does contrast therapy. He's getting hot and cold, but people focus on him because his name is the Iceman, right? And so getting uncomfortable. And then one of the most important ones, and you can watch this for free on YouTube. It was it's the earthing documentary. And so basically I put connect as the last pillar. Connect with the planet. Physically, when you touch Mother Earth, right, with your bare skin, we don't realize that we live in a battery. Okay. The positive end of the battery is in a high atmosphere, and the negative is the earth. And what happens is that lightning strikes, which there are tens of thousands of lightning strikes every 10 minutes on the planet, are negatively charging the planet, and we need to be grounded with the planet. The minute that in the 1960s that synthetic rubber shoes were created, it created a disconnection from the human being and the planet, right? So I have on my bed, my wife and I both have grounding pillowcases that are plugged into the ground of the socket closest to the bed. So, and I literally, like I have in the winter, have flannel sheets. I turn over and I get a positive charge, and I get shocked on my ear when I go to lay back down on my pillow. Right.
Oh, wow.
So we need to have and you can watch this for free. It was Clint Ober is the guy who really discovered this. And there's a free documentary on YouTube you can watch called the Earthing documentary to explain this. But connect with Mother Earth, connect with your family, connect with your friends, and connect with your community, because the blue zone is one of the biggest indicators that they've found in all the common things between these people who live over 100 years old is being connected with their community. That's one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle.
What an amazing pillar to finish with, because in addiction, I don't call it addiction anymore. I call it connection or bonding. And you just finished on that. I wish we had more time. I mean, half an hour, 40 minutes. This is, I mean, I know you've got to go. You've got another meeting in literally 3 minutes. So I'd like to thank you, Scott. This has been amazing. People can find you from the website that's going down there, www.modernlongevitarian.com. Find Scott. If you can also find him on Facebook, Scott Stanfield. If you can't get to him or find him, contact me through my Facebook or go to my page, safbuxy.com, and I will, of course, forward you. Scott, any last words for the audience? What do you normally say when you finish? Something that will stick in our minds.
Well, I want to say this. Yes, you have a say over your health span and your lifespan. You have a say. It's not destined by your genetics. You have a say in what you can create your own environment. And each one of us, I want everybody to know this, each one of us are individuals. What works for one doesn't work for another. I would never read a book that says I got to get up at 5 a.m. because I'm a night owl. I won't read a book and say, this is the way. This is a way that worked for someone and works for a certain group of people, but that doesn't have to be the way for me. And like I asked you earlier, does your diet ideology match up with your biology? Meaning, what do I believe? Does it match up to what I actually really need to be the best me? Right? No matter what we want to think, we are all doing an experiment of one. We are all doing an experiment of one. I have by no means gone through what Saf has gone through, right? And you didn't grow up in South Carolina with a truck driver and a lunch lady as your parents, racing go-karts, exposed to the toxins I was. You weren't born, I don't know if you were born C-section like I was, didn't get the microbiome download from my mom like you're supposed to, because that comes from the vaginal canal. And all of those different things, right? And you haven't had the same rounds of antibiotics I have for my chronic sinus infections. So we're all individuals and we have to find our own way. And so I encourage you to find a health coach, right? Someone that actually can take the time to listen to you and help you find your way if you can't do it yourself, right? And I do take we
can find you, can't we? You can be
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Go to Scott, man. He'll help you. And again, you can contact him anyways. Thank you very much, Scott. Once again, it's been a pleasure. And I've been so happy to finally, I'm going to have you back again for sure. So thank you very much. Cheers, guys. This has been Saf Surgery for another week. I'll see you guys on Monday night, Tuesday night, and again next Thursday. God bless. Peace.
Thanks, buddy. Peace. Thank you.